In this section, we'll start to build up the rest of the surfaces on the car. And I'll use the Surfaces palette and focus on these tools at the top, which are our primary surfacing tools. Now, one of the problems we have with automotive design is the complexity. And if I pick all these surfaces, you'll see that we have over 4,000. And that's still only a concept model, not a full production design. So something like this will take weeks, or more likely months, to build. But the tools I'll teach you in this section are the same that are used to create this detailed car. So here, for example, I've got a square, built with the square surface tool over here. On the wheel, you'd expect to see some revolves. And over here on the side, I've got a square and a rail. So you can learn quite a lot from looking at existing models and seeing how they've been built. But for this section of the tutorials, I'm going to get you to build up just a quick block model of the design, which is something we typically do early on in the design process to assess the proportions and the volumes. And we'll still be working to these sharp edges for now, because we'll do all the blending in the following section. So we'll be working with all of the key surface tools, so revolves, squares and rails. So I just want to be clear about the different modelling strategies that we'll be using. The surfaces we've done so far were built from a plane, which we shaped by picking and moving CVs directly on the surface. And we call this direct modelling. But in this section we're going to work with curves and surface tools and the construction history between them. So here, for example, I've got 4 curves, so I can use the square tool and create a surface between them. And then, with construction history, any modification I make to the curve reshapes the surface. Now initially the surface CVs aren't displayed, but we can turn them on and you can see that they've got exactly the same kind of structure that we used over here. And I can use the draw style options to change the display of the CVs. So I'll make them circular on the surfaces and just big crosses on the curves so that we can differentiate. So as well as controlling the shape, the curves control the structure. So if I pick a CV on the curve and move it, you'll see that it affects the flow of the CVs on the surface. So when we create the curves, we take care to set them up to create good quality surfaces. So those are 2 different approaches, using direct modelling and using curves and surface tools. But in practice we often combine the 2. So what we can do is use curves to create a basic surface, like this monorail, and that gives us a better start than just a flat plane. But then we can turn on the CVs for the surface and directly sculpt them. But if we do that, then we have to lose the construction history. But that's okay, because we're now free to sculpt the shape, or even to rebuild the degree or the spans, and continue to work with it. So we could call that a combined modelling approach. And don't forget everything you've already learned about good quality curves and surfaces. So for example, I always turn on the CVs for surfaces I create, to check the flow of the CVs and hulls. And I'll use tools like the Curve Curvature Locator to make sure that the curves are providing a good input shape for the surface tools. So finally, you may want to take a look at Golden Rules 9 and 10, as they apply to some of the techniques I cover in the tutorials.